All right, let's get started. Thank you so much for having me tonight for the PSAT Scoreback Night. Just wanted to first introduce myself. My name is James. I work with Revolution Prep. I'll introduce myself a little bit further down the line. First, I want to thank Principal Arachiga for having me tonight and all of you parents and students for coming. It's a very important time for you guys, and I'm really excited to talk to you about the PSAT. So a little bit more about me. Like I said, my name is James. I work for Revolution Prep. I graduated originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, from Marymount High School, and then went on to Xavier University, where I graduated in 2010 with a degree in history. I currently work as a program advisor for Revolution Prep, where I get the opportunity to work with students every single day, finding the best prep options for them, whether it be group courses, tutoring, and most importantly, help them get into their college of their dreams. So what we'll cover tonight, and we're going to be covering a lot. So throughout the course of this presentation, if you guys have questions about anything, please, I will probably answer them, and I will stay as long as I need to afterwards to answer any questions you might have, because it's going to be a lot of information to cover. But what we're going to start with tonight is why testing matters. Of course, why you guys are here. Most of you are here probably to get your PSAT score results, but we're here also to talk about down the line testing and the SAT, ACT, and the timeline. So interpreting your PSAT results will be the first thing we'll cover tonight. We'll talk about exactly what that test was covering, what it was like, and then we will move from the PSAT to the ACT. The PSAT was basically your first exposure to standardized testing, and after you take the PSAT, the SAT, and the ACT will follow. We can also talk about subject tests, AP exams, and kind of come up with a general testing timeline as we go on. So let's talk about why testing matters, why we're here tonight. The PSAT, for some of you, was your first exposure to any type of standardized test. It's unlike any test you've ever taken. It's probably much longer as well. But I want to talk to you about your transcript and why testing matters in that respect. Basically, 50% of your overall college admissions profile is going to be your transcript. That's going to be your grades, what kind of courses you've taken, the rigor of your courses. That's going to make up about 50% of your overall college admissions profile, by far the biggest chunk. 25%, roughly 20, 25%, 20 to 30% is going to be your standardized test, this SAT or ACT that we'll talk about. The remaining 20, 25% will be basically your extracurricular activities. And when you think about the average high school student, how many hours a week would you guys say you spend on homework for school? About 8. On average, it's about 8 to 10, 12 hours a week that kids spend on their transcript, which equates to about 8,000 hours by the time you guys graduate from high school. That's a ton of time you're pouring into your transcript, a ton of time you're pouring into your grades. That's fantastic. It's about 50% of your admissions profile. So let's think about how much time you spend in your extracurriculars, which is about 20% of your admissions profile. How often would you guys say that you practice baseball or basketball or do something? Okay. And what we found is that it's about 1,000 hours by the time students graduate high school is they've spent on extracurricular activities. So about 8,000 they've spent on their transcript, 1,000 they've spent on extracurriculars, and that makes up about 70% of your academic profile, or excuse me, your college admissions profile moving forward. The final 30% standardized tests. How long would you think the average student spends preparing for the standardized test, for the SAT or ACT? 5. So yeah, it's actually about 10 hours. So, which equates to taking a couple practice exams or maybe having a tutoring session here or there. So for 30% of your entire college admissions application profile, the average kid only devotes about 10 hours their entire high school career, where you're devoting 8,000 hours to your GPA. So why does it matter? Well, your GPA is pretty much already set in stone by the time you're applying to colleges. It'll still be time to make a little bit of an impact, but your GPA will pretty much be set. So that 50% by the time you're a junior and senior and applying to colleges, there's not going to be much you're going to be able to change. You might be able to change it a little, but not much. Your extracurriculars, by the time you're a junior or senior, they will be pretty much done as well. I mean, you will have known what you're involved in, the clubs, the sports, that'll be pretty much done. So the only remaining factor of your college admissions profile is that 30% that is the SAT, and it's where you can make all the difference. So that is why testing matters, is because it's 30% of your college admissions profile, and if it's overlooked, it can really cost you. If you really train and try hard and go through practice exams or courses or tutoring and really pull yourself into the standardized test, it's the biggest way to make you a better applicant for your college of your dreams. So let's move on to exactly what the PSAT is. So the PSAT is basically a practice version of the SAT. You get the PSAT. So it's a practice version. It's not quite as long, but for some of you, it was probably your first introduction to standardized testing. For sophomores, it probably was. You've never taken a test that was that long, kind of that tricky in the manner that the questions were asked, and most importantly, it was, like I said, the longest test you've probably taken. It was only 2.5 hours. You guys probably thought you were there much longer. It probably seemed longer. The actual SAT is much longer than that. So for sophomores, it was just a great initial exposure to what testing will be like, what these tests will be like when you take them down the road. If you're a junior and you take it, fantastic. You have a chance to qualify for the National Merit Scholarship, which is a big deal in terms of earning scholarship money to schools and being recruited by the top schools in the country if you score in the highest percentile. For everyone, it's really a chance to find out where you stand. Like we said, the SAT and the ACT are very different tests. So if you by taking the PSAT, you've now sat through a standardized test, realized what it takes from you, and you're probably a little bit more comfortable with everything right now. So let's talk about the test itself, the actual breakdown of the PSAT. You guys probably remember you were there for a little over 2 hours, but with breaks and everything, it was probably 2.5 hours. There's 5 sections, like you guys all know, divided between math, critical reading, and writing. So there's 2 25-minute critical reading sections that you guys took, 2 25-minute math sections, and then a 30-minute writing section. So all of that was about 2 hours and 10 minutes long. And most of you, when you were taking it, were probably feeling at the end, man, I'm pretty tired. This is like something I've never taken before, which is exactly why the PSAT is a great thing to take, because you can really sit back and say, man, this is a test where I'm really going to need endurance. I felt tired at the end, and maybe some of you didn't. Maybe some of you felt fantastic, and you'll know exactly what kind of test taker you are. But exposing yourself to the PSAT is a great way to do just that. Find out exactly what kind of test taker you are, see where you score on a national basis, and then be able to make adjustments accordingly. Create a timeline, and then see exactly how you'll do on the official SAT or ACT. Okay, so everybody take out your score reports that you got. It's a gigantic, big thing that you got when you came in. And we'll look at the different, how you interpret your scores, which is probably the main reason why most of you are here, trying to figure out, hey, what do these numbers mean? Where do I stand? If you look at the top, there's going to be 3 numbers, and we'll look at the one that we have in our sample here. There's a 50, a 52, and a 44. Like I said, those are the 3 sections. Those are the scores from the 3 sections on the test. So the 50 was in critical reading, the 52 was in math, and the 44 was in writing. Now, all of these are scored out of 80 points. So it's on a basis from 0 to 80 points, excuse me. So 50 is pretty middle of the road, and all these can be equated to a 146 on the PSAT, which equates to a 1460 on the official SAT. So for each section, you'll see that you see a score. Underneath that, there will be a score range. Now let's talk about what exactly this score range is. This score range basically means that if you were to take this test again down the line without doing any type of preparation or anything else, if you were just take it again as is down the line, you would probably score in that in that index. So you plus or minus basically what is there. So it says a little below 46 to 54. So it's pretty much it gives you an idea. You'll probably miss maybe a couple more, maybe you'll get a couple more, but it's basically this is where you're going to be scoring if you take this again down the line. And with the PSAT, you just add a 0 to every section if you want to get a rough estimate of what you'll get on the SAT. Because of course the SAT is out of 2400. This is only out of 240. So if you just simply add a 0, you can kind of estimate, it's not a perfect thing, but you can kind of estimate exactly where you score on the official SAT. And so then let's move on to total score and the selection index. The selection index is basically where you would stand on a national level. So it's the sum of the section scores out of 240. So it's basically your composite score, all 3 sections added up. So with our one that we have here, with our sample, there was a 146. So that means he scored a 146 composite on the entire PSAT, and that put him in the 47th percentile, which is the percentile of college-bound juniors in your state that you scored higher than. So by getting a 146, he scored higher than 47% of the kids who were taking this test, which is pretty good. And like I said, just simply convert that to an SAT score, you would simply add a 0. So 146 would become a 1460.